Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Today's guest, Donya Zimmerman, the powerful bizwoman. She helps women 35 to 65 with turning their hobby into business that builds a legacy for her and her family. Donya Zimmerman is the principal owner of Powerful Bizwoman, and she is a business consultant, author, and public speaker trainer. Donya received her Juris Doctorate in law from the University of Baltimore Law School. She has a weekly segment entitled Powerful Biz Tip of the Week on the radio show Evolutionary Woman, hosted by Khadija Ali, that runs every Monday at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Donya is a contributing writer with the Maryland Daily Examiner newspaper, and she's also a guest blogger for Leadership Girl online magazine. Donya has made article contributions to the Simply Inspirational Women in Business Journal for 2014 and 2015, published by Dr. Cheryl Cottle. She has her own blog entitled Business Development and Conflict Resolution, discussing business development, conflict resolution, and the daily life of being a small business owner. Donya has also conducted several workshops and speaking engagements on business startups and female entrepreneurship. She has created the business series called CYA, Cover Your Assets, educating entrepreneurs on the importance of protecting their assets while in business. Donya has a few books in the pipeline that will be published in early 2017. The books are Daily Devotionals for Entrepreneurs, How to Create a Strong Inner Willpower, Entrepreneurship 101, Textbook Guide for Aspiring Entrepreneurs, and 10 Small Business Owner Tips for Newbie Entrepreneurs. Welcome, Donya.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
You really have an interesting background because you are actually a lawyer and you bring to the table some really important things that entrepreneurs, women and men, really need to think about. So let's go ahead and start with, who do you help and how in the world did you get started with this big adventure?
Well, basically, I help women who are around my age in the middle, in our middle phase where we've done everything we were supposed to do. We've taken care of family. We had a career, and sometimes we retire early. The kids, they're gone. They're doing their own thing. And then we're in the second phase where we're like, wow, I've done everything and I've taken care of everybody else. What about me? And that's why I call it the second phase of life, because now women are starting to come into their own once they hit about 40 years old, between 35 to 65 years old. If you look at First Lady Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Hillary Clinton, all of these women came into their own once they hit around 40. And that's why I like to work with women around my age, between 35 to 65 years old, because that's like a growing phase for us. It's like we mature and we come into our true womanhood around that time. And the main reason why I started this big adventure was because I had my own law practice, and I was in practice for about 15 years. But what happened was that I thought I could afford to hire employees, and I should have not hired them. I should have had my accountant look at my books correctly. And what occurred was I was stealing from Paul to pay Peter. And then I had clients that were mishandling the money. They were mishandling clients' files. And I put my trust in these people. And at the end of the day, I had clients who sued me, filed grievances against me. And at the end of the day, I had to close shop. So I tried to figure out a way how can I help people? How can I turn my into a message? And so I had to evaluate. It took a couple of years, but I did it. And I realized that I had to educate people on the importance of ensuring that they have a good legal foundation and a good financial foundation so that they could deal with the unexpected that happens while in business, especially the legal aspects. And that's why I started, family and community mediation and business consulting and Powerful Biz Women.
Wow. So you, like you said, you turned your mess into a big message. And I really think that your message really is important because often entrepreneurs, they have this big idea. And so they just leap ahead and they forget about the legal aspects and the financial foundations they need to create a real viable business that could become a legacy for their family. And often, like you said, things happen and there you are. Maybe a client wants to sue you over something and it's like, uh-oh, what do I do now? So tell me, what do you do? What are the main problems that you help solve for your clients?
The main problems that I help solve for my clients is that I try to educate them on the importance of making sure their business um, is properly set up. Because a lot of people, they'll go about making the money and getting the clients, but they're not like set up like a LLC or they're not set up properly like a limited liability company, a S corp or a corporation, and people don't realize that if you're out there doing business and you are sole proprietor, you are responsible for every credit, every debt that comes to that business. You are personally liable. You and that business are not separate. And a lot of people fail to realize that. Number two, a lot of people fail to realize that you got to have a separate account for your business. They will put money, they'll commingle their funds into their personal account, and you can't do that. You have to have a separate account for your personal expenses and a separate account for your business expenses. And if you can't open a business account right now, you can do like PayPal, like I do right now. I'm in the process of getting my business properly set up, but I have a separate account where I only do my PayPal online account is where I do all my business transactions and I do not commingle my funds. And that's another thing. And then another important thing, I try to educate people on the importance of having insurance, life insurance, business insurance, um, homeowners insurance, especially if you're running your business out of your home. You got to have homeowners insurance to protect everything, and also renter insurance. Like if you're renting a place and you have an office, you need to protect. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of having a lawyer, accountant, a banker, and an insurance agent. And that's what the problems I try, to help people. I come up with good solutions for them. I connect them with people who I know who are attorneys, accountants, bankers and insurance agents to make sure that their business is properly protected and to ensure that they will never ever be personally liable for anything that occurs in their business.
I think that's really, really important. And setting up under a limited liability corporation, I know in Florida is not that difficult. It's actually a pretty simple procedure. So a big thing that I'm reading in your bio is you talk about the what ifs that can occur. What are some what ifs that people need to think of if let's say, they've looked at they set themselves up as a limited liability corporation. They've got a business bank account. They've got their insurance for their business. What are some other what ifs that they should be thinking about? And what are some possible things that could happen to you?
Well, the what ifs that they need to think about is, what do you do if a client doesn't pay you the money that they owe you for services or products rendered? What if, say, like, especially if you have a hair salon, or you have a supermarket, or you have a storefront? What if a client falls and injures themselves? What if you have a client where you did all the services and you did everything, but they're not satisfied and they decide to sue you? And what if something, God forbid, happens to you personally or a viable employee? What do you do? And that's the what ifs, the four main what ifs that you have to deal with while in business.
Wow, it's kind of scary when you think about it, that if you're out there without having an attorney or the advice of an attorney and then an accountant and having all these things in place. So, what are some of the misconceptions about the services that you provide?
The misconceptions is that people don't want to deal with that. Every event or conference, business conference, training workshop, or webinar that I've been to, they never address the financial and legal aspects of running a business. They will tell you how to do lead generations, how to create client-based systems so you can get your clients, how to create revenue generating systems to bring the money in. But every time, even when people will say, hey, we're looking for speakers for our woman conference, for our business conference. And every time I would submit my proposal submissions, oh no, we don't want to address that. We want to keep it happy. We want to keep it positive. But yes, but people are afraid to deal with the negative aspects of business. And they're not really negative aspects, because anything can happen to anybody. No matter what you're doing, you could be working at a 500 corporation that's on Wall Street, and something happens to the CEO. But they have systems in place that if something happens to the CEO or something happens to viable people in the company can continue to run.
That's really a good point. So that is a really interesting point that you bring up, is that people don't want to think about, I guess this is business 101 stuff, that it should be the foundation of every business before you ever open your doors. Yet, like you said, people are saying, oh, it's like it's not sexy enough or it's not exciting enough. But really, I bet if you actually told people, we're going to give you the tools to make sure that you are set up correctly in business and get started, they would probably really want it if they're serious. I mean, everybody, it's almost like people go into business and they get so far ahead because of all the exciting stuff that they forget the foundations. And like you said, somebody could turn around and say, well, I want all my money back, and you've already spent it. What do you do then? And you work with women, and one of the things that you mentioned about your services is that you help people do mediations. And how important is that in your contracts or in your agreements to have a clause in your paperwork that says, well, before I sue you, I agree to mediate with you?
Well, I think it's very important, because you have to have that in place so that you don't, because for me, the the business of being a business is very tricky, and it's very deceitful. And for me, as a lawyer, especially in the civil court part, judges had to hear childish things. Whereas the contractor, he didn't paint the painter didn't paint it the exact blue that I wanted it. And they're backlogged with a whole bunch of cases, frivolous cases. Because even on 2020, they had a story of this woman in a small town where she literally sued everybody in the town for little things. But it was nothing that the court system could do, because they were talking about why they are doing mediation and why mediation is a good tool to weed out the frivolous cases. She sued everybody in town. She had everybody in court. Every week, she was unhappy with somebody in town. One of the residents did something to her, so she was upset. And so they were explaining why mediation is good. Mediation is a way for two people to come together who have a disagreement in an amicable, safe environment to come together, voice their opinions, voice their frustration, and come to a resolution themselves. And the reason why you should have a mediation clause in your contract, because that can help you to avoid spending a lot of money in court. And plus, that can help you try to talk to the opposing side, figure out what frustrated them with your services or the products. And then you can come to a comfortable, agreeable solution where both of you came up with it. And plus, it can be a learning tool for a business owner that, hey, this customer told me that they weren't satisfied because we took 30 minutes making them wait 30 minutes on the phone, or we promised them their computer would be fixed within 24 hours, but we didn't do it in a week. So what we need to do is we need to transition and figure out how we can make our customer service system a lot better.
Well, that's really interesting, the examples that you just gave, because you're right. I actually went to mediation because I had a contractor who, when they installed the tiles in the bathroom, they put them all in crooked. And I never knew that I was so picky until I got into the bathtub and all the tiles were crooked. And it was like, oh my God. And so we actually went to mediation. And of course, it was solved in mediation. But could you imagine going in front of a judge saying, Judge, I didn't want to pay for it because the tiles were crooked?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. So you actually have created the business training series, the CYA, Cover Your Assets. What is that? Is that a live workshop or an online workshop? What's involved in that workshop?
Well, the good thing about that is I decided to keep that online. I decided to keep that virtual
Oh, okay.
because you can reach more people. You can reach a broader audience. And I had my first event that I had was to introduce the CYA series, 8 reasons why CYA cover your asset letters are important for business. And then I had my next event, I had the CYA virtual summit where I had a week long, where I had accountants, I had lawyers, I had bankers, I had insurance agents, and I had different type of people come and explain to people, you know, what it takes to be in business, what tools you need, and it gave people the opportunity to ask questions,
Wow.
that they may have asked while in business. And I've decided that each year I'm going to do that CYA Cover Your Assets business series. I'm going to do it every year.
Well, I think that's a really, really good idea to have that as an online event and to have all those experts come in so that you can hear it directly from an accountant and an attorney and the insurance agents. That is really powerful. Tell me a little bit more about these book projects that you're working on. You have the daily devotionals for entrepreneurs, how to create a strong inner willpower, Entrepreneurship 101 textbook guide for aspiring entrepreneurs, and then the 10 small business owner tips for newbie entrepreneurs. Start with that one. Can you share a couple of the tips that you're going to include in that book?
Well, with that one, that's going to be a yearly one where I'm going to provide 10 tips every year.
Oh,
And
okay.
the first 10 tips are going to be how to properly set up your business, how to make sure, everything is covered. It's going to be like the CYA 10 tips. Why do you need an accountant? Why do you need an attorney? Why do you need to separate your personal asset, your business accounts, your personal expenses from your business expenses? What types of insurance? That's what that's going to be. And then the daily devotionals, that was very important to me because a lot of times we get trapped in just wanting to do business that we forget about to take care of our spiritual, mental, and physical beings. And we just focus on business too much. That's why I did that one. And then Entrepreneurships 101, that's going to be something where I'm trying to develop a online course to prepare people under the CYA umbrella to help people make sure their business is properly set up so that once they leave the course, they will have everything in place to protect their assets.
I like that. And then the how to create a strong inner willpower. What's that one all about?
Well, that was a personal experience for me because having to give up my law practice, that really took a lot out of me. And I was really depressed for a very long time. I felt like, why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I passionate about? And God had to tell me, I'm gonna put you through the wilderness for a while so that you can get your strength back because you've been up against some tough male lawyers, you've been up against some tough female lawyers, and you can do this, but you need to be on this journey for a while. Get yourself together, get your mind and your spirit right so that you can be passionate, so you can be the educator that I wanted you to be. And that's why I did that, the inner willpower, because it was a personal experience for me to transition from losing the practice, being disbarred, to coming back at this point in my life.
Wow, that is a phenomenal story because I'm thinking about that as you said that, Donya. How think about it. If that had not happened to you, then you would not have been on this path. So sometimes our lives get shaken up. And sometimes you have to ask God, you go, okay, did I really need it to have it this tough to get the message? That's often what my question is okay, I think I get the message. It can, I've had enough, but of course we don't get to choose that. But just listening to you, and I can hear the passion in your voice about how taking your own personal story about, basically losing everything. And then now you had to start over. And that just makes what you have to offer people so much more powerful because this is important stuff. That this is probably the most important thing that you can do when you become an entrepreneur, and you can't gloss over it. You can't just say, oh, it's not happy enough, because which would you rather have? Would you rather cover your assets, like what you say, or would you like to get sued and lose everything that you've worked for because you didn't take the time to set up your business properly? I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But the sad thing, Tamara, is that a lot of people don't see it like that. A lot of people don't want to deal with the what ifs, the unexpected. They just want everything. I think we have this false sense of it's a beautiful world and everything's perfect. Like, when something happens in certain neighborhoods and people say, I'm surprised that it happened in my neighborhood because this is such a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Ding, ding.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the neighbors don't communicate with each other. Everybody sticks to themselves. That's why things happen in your neighborhood. But if you notice in certain neighborhoods, things don't happen because you have the nosy grandmothers, the nosy mothers, you have the dads out there working on the lawns, people being neighbors and being friendly, and nothing never happens in that neighborhood because everybody is connected. Everybody is taking care of each other. Everybody looks out for each other. And that's the same way in business. That's why you need this dream team of a lawyer, accountant, banker, insurance agent, business coach, business consultant, good employee support system, because they will be there watching your back when you can't watch yourself.
Wow, that's very powerful and very, very true. So, Donya, where can people find out more about you and your services?
Well, my website is in the works. I had to shut the other one down. You know how that happens. So they can go to they can get me on Facebook. All they have to do is put in Powerful Biz Woman, Powerful Biz, B-I-Z, woman, and they can connect with me. Just leave a message. My contact information is on there. I have my email on there and I have my telephone number. All they got to do is go into About or the information. And also, Tamara, I want to let people know that I have a book collaboration coming up. It's called Disbarred, Making a Major Comeback. And also, I have a speaking engagement, 2 speaking engagements coming up. And if they go to Powerful Biz Woman, they can get information on that. It's called Power Your Way Forward Conference in Dallas, Texas, the weekend of July the 23rd. And then I have Girl Go Be Great conference, and that's going to be the weekend of September the 8th, and that's in Atlanta, Georgia. And if they want any information, just go to my Facebook page, Powerful Biz Woman, and all the information will be up there.
Great. So you are doing some Powerful Biz Woman speaking engagements, and you have a collaborative book. Can you tell me a little bit more about that book?
Oh, the book is called From Fear to Freedom. And the funny thing is, if they go to my Powerful Biz Woman, she is still looking for authors. And basically what this book collaboration is about, it's about women who went through a tragic, whether it was personal, business, a tragedy, and then how they overcame it.
Oh, okay, great. Well, that sounds like, number one, you are a powerful biz woman and you have a lot of really cool things going on. So, Donya, I really appreciate the time you took with me today. And again, this is vital, important information that you should not be ignoring the foundations of your business. So thank you so much, Donya.
And Tamara, I want to thank you for your willingness to talk about this, because recently I just noticed that people are willing to talk about this now. And you're like the second show that I've done where we've talked about building a strong foundation, not just for your business, but also for personal, because you got to have a will and you got to have insurance so that your children, you can leave a legacy of prosperity and not a legacy of debt. Legacy of wealth, but not a legacy of debt. And I thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your show, because of women like you with your platform, other women entrepreneurs are able to educate and promote their business and to share their story. And I thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This is Tammy Pantzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.